Hey everyone, it's Anna. I'm here and going to recap the last episode of Vampire Diaries. The sun also rises, so I'm just going to jump right into it. We start off with Matt, Caroline, and like the cellar thing, and Matt is shooting at Tyler, and Caroline's like, no, that's Tyler, and Matt's like, oh, I'm not sure what that thing is. And we're like, yeah, that thing is Tyler, so stop shooting at it. I was like really pissed off at that. Then it goes to like Damon and Catherine, and yeah, just that scene, I just felt kind of irrelevant. But you do find out that, you do find out how Jenna actually turned into a vampire, is that she called Jenna and lured her out the house. She called her as Elena, so glad that cleared that up for me. Damon still is trying to save, Jenna too. He wants to make himself the vampire that they sacrificed and not Jenna, so I think that kind of shows a lot of Damon's good side. So I don't, yeah. So then we go to Elena and Jenna, and Elena's explaining to Jenna that that she's transitioning into a vampire, and Jenna's freaking out, and excuse me, Jenna's freaking out. And it's really sad. And then all of a sudden Greta is like, oh well, I bet you're hungry, and she busts out with this rock and cuts her hand and makes Jenna drink from her. It's kind of crazy. Elena's like, no. She tries to stop it, but yeah, they put her in a different ring of fire. You go to the witch house and you still see that Bonnie and Jeremy are still trying to figure out a way to save Elena. It's dude, we're way past that. Jenna's dying now. Jenna's gonna be a vampire, so you need to figure out a way to save her. Then you go to Alaric, Stefan, and Elijah, and they're talking about the plan and what they're gonna do, and and all this other stuff. And then all of a sudden Damon calls and he's like, they have Jenna. The plan's not gonna work. They start freaking out. Well, Stefan starts freaking out, and then he has to explain to them what's going on. Jenna starts feeling all her vampire senses, and Elena's just like, oh yeah, just looking at her, she explains them. Oh, then they bring in Jules for the sacrifice, and I'm just like, okay, I forgot about Jules. After the last episode, it's so weird that I just completely forgot about her. Yeah. And then Elena's trying to whatchamacallit, she's trying to bargain with Greta. Not bargain, but trying to convince her oh, witches are supposed to be something one with the earth or whatever, and keep the earth in balance. And Greta's like, I don't care, my duty is to Klaus and the New Order. I'm like, okay, New Order. Then you go back to Caroline and Matt. They're in the Lockwood mansion, I think, and they're trying to hide from Tyler. In there you find out that, Matt confesses to Caroline about everything that, about him betraying her basically, and Caroline's kind of like, what? And I think at that point she realizes that things are different, so you feel kind of bad for her. John goes to the Salvatore house and he confronts Damon. Well, he's talking to Damon, and he's like, oh well, how come I haven't been able to get a hold of Elena? And you find out, of course he finds out that they have Elena, and he comes to confront Damon, and Damon's like, well, I fed her my blood. And he's like, you know what, you ruined her life. And he's all pissed off because Elena might become a vampire, and vampires are what he hates. And John finds out that they have Jenna, so he's like holy shit. Klaus comes, and when Klaus and Greta, we go to that scene, back to the wherever the hell they're at. They bust out the moonstone, and they start doing the sacrifice basically begins after the moonstone. After they have the moonstone, and he rips Joel's hearts out. He rips Joel's heart out. And you're kind of holy shit. Yeah, I kind of didn't cry about that. A lot of people are oh, I was crying from the very beginning when they killed Jules, and I'm like, yeah, I didn't. I kind of wanted her to die, I just didn't want Klaus to kill her. But anyways, Bonnie and Jeremy are still like at the witch house, and they're looking through all the grimoires and stuff, and then the guys come and go to explain to them, well, Stefan's like, I'm gonna offer myself because they have Jenna, and Bonnie's like, well, you need to get me out there, and, you know, Bonnie's like, well, you need to get me out there. So, at that point, you're like, yeah, you do need to get her out there. We need to still find a way to save Jenna. Yeah, so then anyways, they go back to Jenna and Elena, and this part kind of like made me tear up so bad when Jenna's like apologizing to Elena for not being like a good enough guardian, and that at first she was never gonna be their guardian, you know, and she apologized for it. She feels kind of guilty because, you know, she kind of thinks that it's her fault that Bonnie and Jeremy, I mean not Bonnie, well, Elena and Jeremy aren't safe, and yeah, it's really sad. She's just like blaming herself, and it kind of broke my heart. So then you go back, sorry, I'm looking at my notes, and I'm sorry if this is boring, it's just that this episode kind of made me really, really sad, so I'm just like, you go back to the wolf house, and yes, baby, we have a naked Tyler moment. Yes, he's like outside on the steps, and I think Matt at that point notices that Caroline and Tyler are better for each other. He sees, you know, as soon as like Tyler's just like, Caroline, you know, that forward moment, I think Matt finally realized, like, you know what, I can't be with her, like, I'm not the right one for her, and I'm just like, yes, forward. Then you go to the scene with Stefan talking with Elijah, talking about the sacrifice, and that, you know, why did Elijah want to get revenge on his brother? And Stefan's like, well, I've wanted to kill Damon a bunch of times, but I could never do it because he's my brother. And Elijah's like, well, he killed my entire family. Klaus killed my entire family, and you can, you know, have my word that I'm not going to turn my back on you. I won't fail you. Okay, we'll come back to that later because we already know what happened. Anyways, John brings Bonnie the Gilbert journals to like go through, and you know, to find some, you know, like another thing, like, you know, to save them, to save Jenna and Elena. So they're looking through them. We go to Damon and Alaric, and they're talking about Stefan sacrificing himself, and Damon, you could tell, like, right there, it's like a brother moment, like, he was pissed off that Stefan was gonna sacrifice himself, and he was like, well, there's another way, and he's like, no, well, that's killing Bonnie, and I think in that moment, it was kind of like, yeah, I'd rather Bonnie die than my brother, so, I mean, it's kind of heartwarming that you kind of see, like, the brother moment. There's a lot of those this episode, and I'm really happy. I mean, it's not all about them hating each other. And I mean, if you've read the Stefan Diaries, then you know that you knew like the bond that they had when they were human. So it was kind of good to see that.